Hello, I'm Natalie Davidson. I'm a postdoc in Casey Green's lab, and I'm coming to you from University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. And I'm happy to share my work with all of you today, covering the analysis of scientific journalism in Nature reveals gender and regional disparities in coverage. So let's start off with the riddle. How is the following possible? A father and son are in a horrible crash that kills the dad. The son is rushed to the hospital. Just as he's about to go under the knife, the surgeon says, "I can't operate. That boy is my son." So if you are stumped, no worries. If you got it, great job. You did much better than many BU students. The answer is that the surgeon was his mother. And what this is supposed to reveal is that some people sometimes have a bias that a surgeon is male. So bias is something that's very well known, especially in the field of journalism. Many journalists have studied this, have tracked their own biases, and tried to counteract them. And we can see that representation, in this case, I'm showing here representation of women in news coverage, has gone closer to parity. So we can see that from 1995 to 2015, across most sectors of news, representation has been increasing for women. And we were interested in very specifically scientific journalism and disparities there, and even more specifically, looking at nature news coverage. So there's two main aspects of this analysis, gender and name origin. So for gender, we look at what's the ratio of male to female attributed quotes. And for name origin, we look at each of these 7 name origin course clusters and see if there's any differences in representation between them. And for those, we look at both quotes and citations. So gender and name origin are predictions. They are not ground truth. They are not self-reported. Please forgive me. I may omit predicted as I speak. There are many caveats to doing these types of predictions. So we're not saying that we predicted these the genders or the name origins correctly. What we just want to see is general trends and comparisons between different corpora. So the data that we're using is this data that is extracted from Nature news articles. So we're looking at quotes and quoted speakers and citations in each article. And what we're doing is we're taking these and if needed, we're extracting their names and affiliations. And then we take all of their names and we predict their gender and we predict their name origin. And then for affiliations, in order to identify the region that they're from, or the region that they're publishing from, we use OpenStreetMap. So how do we estimate over or under representation? Because it's not enough just to say that there is 60% are quotes attributed to males. What we want to do is we want to have a comparator of is it more or is it less than we expected? And we're going to do this by taking advantage of the fact that we're using Nature News, because Nature has both a news section and they also have a research section. So what we're going to do is we're going to take their research articles, which we combine as both articles and letters, and we assume that the people interviewed in news articles are active researchers and they're publishing papers. So therefore, the demographics observed in the news articles should be reflective of the demographics observed in the research articles. So these are our two corpora that we're going to compare to one another. So here's an overview of all of the articles that are retrieved from Nature. So the research articles are these kind of like seafoam greenish ones, and then all the news articles are all the colors below that. And they're broken down by these different categories called career features, which was introduced in 2017, general news, news features, technology features, and toolbox. So first, let's dive into the gendered quotes analysis. So here's the number of quotes per news article over time. And over here, we have our proportions. So what are we looking at? So along our x-axis, we have the year of the article. And then here we're having the proportion of quotes that are attributed to a male speaker. So parity is here along this red line. So we can see that the quotes, which is shown here in purple. So that's all of these news article types collapsed into one article type. And we see that the quotes primarily come from male speakers. We do see that it is decreasing over time, though. These sort of like blue grayish lines are our comparators. So what we're looking at here is Nature first authors that were predicted male and proportion of male last authors that were predicted male. So one interesting observation is that we do see that last authors tend to be male in comparison to first authors in Nature. And we also see that the quotes are going towards parity at a faster rate than authorship within Nature. You may notice this dip here, right here, pointed. And we're interested in understanding what this is. And we found that this corresponded to the introduction of this article type, career feature, which focuses more on the day-to-day life of a scientist. Interestingly, we also found that the gender quote difference is unaffected by who wrote the article, so the journalist's gender. So we see that female journalists and male journalists both tend to overquote males in comparison to females. So now I'm going to look at the name origin analysis. Due to time, I'm just going to focus on the quotes analysis. But if you're interested, please check out our bioarchive paper. So the name origin analysis of quoted speakers in Nature News. So here we have the estimated proportion of quoted speakers by their name origin. So along the x-axis, we have the year of the article, and along the y-axis, we have the proportion of quotes. So along here, it will sum to 1. So we see that the biggest slice of the pie goes to quotes that can be attributed to a predicted Celtic English name origin. Followed by that, it is European name origins, and then much, much lower, we see East Asian and all of the rest of the name origin clusters. So is this more or less than expected? Similar to the gender analysis, we want to answer this question. So to try to answer this, we will compare against the proportion of predicted Celtic English authors in the Nature research articles again. So here's the percentage of quotes versus authorship by name origin. So here, again, along the x-axis, we have the year, and along the y-axis, we have the percentage of quotes or articles. So here we have the about 50% of the quotes are attributed to a person with a Celtic English name origin. And that is much, much higher than what we'd expect by the authorship rates in Nature, both across first authors in Nature and last authors in Nature. In comparison, we see that East Asian people with East Asian predicted name origins have much, much lower quotation rates than expected, given their publication rates. However, we see that European more or less matches with expectation. So our key findings are that in our gender quote analysis, we found a bias towards male quotation. We found that gender disparity in quotes is column dependent, and we see that the career features column actually reaches gender parity. For our name origin analysis, we've found a significant overrepresentation with Celtic English origin and underrepresentation of names with East Asian origin. This finding was observed both in extracted quotes and citations, not shown here, but dampened in citations. We also have more work that we didn't show. We expanded this to other sources of science journalism. We automated our pipeline to use on a different news like Corpora, and we replicated these results in The Guardian. We also included other journals as comparators. Nature is known to be a biased sample of academic authorship, and we repeated this analysis on 38,400 Springer Nature published articles, and these results were consistent with other comparator journals. So what can we do? There's tons of places where you can add your name or add a friend's name to databases in order for them to be found by journalists for interviewing. Also edit yourself into Wikipedia. We also have another companion kind of article that talks about computational audits and how these can be used to combat disparities in recognition. I'd like to thank everyone in the lab, especially my mentor, Casey Green, the great Milton Pividori, and now Dr. David Nicholson. I also like to thank Jeffrey Prickrell for his insight into the journalistic process and many, many insightful questions. If you have any questions, please reach out to me either on Twitter or via email. Thanks for your attention.